10 typical mistakes beginners do on a highline. Let's start with mistake number 1. Beginners, they are often really scared of heights, and they don't want to move. And if you don't move, the blood circulation will stop at one point. And I really recommend to you, keep moving. Like, no matter what kind of movement you do, you can, for example, just like change the position a bit, go from sitting to lying, or you can like do really easy tricks, like for example, chest roll, some super simple stuff. Every single move will help you understand the highline a bit more, and the blood circulation will not stop. So, especially if you're scared, keep moving. Mistake number 2 is having a leash that is way too long. I normally take my leash, the length of my leg, plus about 5 centimeters. As a total beginner, you can go even a bit shorter. You need the length of your leg to be able to stand up, but you don't really need longer. And if the leash is too long, like, the danger is bigger that you get wrapped in the leash. And also it's going to be much more strenuous to climb up. So have it as short as possible. Let's come to mistake number 3. This is not untwisting the leash after leash fall. So when I fall, often I end up turning. The leash starts twisting. And when I come back up to the line, there will be this twist, causing some danger to put the finger or toes or something inside. The more it's twisted, the more dangerous it is. So if this happens, go down again, make sure that the leash is more or less straight. 1 or 2 twists is fine, but not more. Mistake number 4 is to underestimate mantle mounts. So leash climbing you will manage at one point, but getting from here to the top of the line, that really takes a lot of energy and technique. It looks super easy when I'm doing it, but I recommend that you're able to do at least like 10 in a row, because this is what limits you from the amount of tries you can do on the highline. Most people at the beginning, they concentrate on standing up, on walking, on these things, but if you're only able to stand up twice because you only can do 2 mantle mounts, you will not get far in your highline career. So prepare yourself. There is a tutorial that you can click here, how to do mantle mounts, just starting from here to around the line. It looks easy, but it's tough, so learn that one. So let's come to mistake number 5. This is not being able to stop surfs. Often after a leash fall, the line doesn't just bounce nicely up and down, but it surfs sideways. And if you're on a park line close to the ground, it's super easy to stop it by just using the ground. But on a highline you don't have this option. So it's really good if you already learn on a park line in a sitting position how to start a surf and how to stop a surf. We also have a video to learn that one, because if you have that problem on a highline and you keep surfing, you will have a really hard time to stand up again. The only other way to do it is having a friend at the anchor point who will stop the surf for you, but you don't want to have that forever, right? Mistake number 6 is that you take leash falls like on a long line. On a long line you want to learn to slide off with your feet so that you land on your feet. But on a high line you don't want to slide off with your feet, because like if you have, for example, leash in the middle of your legs and you slide off with the feet, you will hit yourself between the legs with the leash. So for example, when falling forward, you just want to let yourself fall like this. You have a nice leash fall. I will soon do a better tutorial about leash falls. For now, just ask your friends, because all experienced highliners normally know how to leash fall. Mistake number 7 is to catch the line. Like, often when people get scared, they like catch the line like that, or just by jumping down, with the hand, something like that. I mean, the way I showed it now is all good, except that normally when you're catching, you don't fight for the limit. That means you don't really exceed your skills if you always catch once it gets a bit unstable. So if you want to increase your walking or standing skills, fight to the limit, go for the leash fall. Also, catching has a certain danger. For example, like one-handed catching can really dislocate your shoulders or destroy your fingers. So at one point it totally makes sense to learn catching, but not on your first highline go, because also often your first highline is a bit shorter and therefore the dynamics are not as nice as on longer highlines. And this leads us to mistake number 8, not using a nice highline setup. Like, it used to be normal to go for like 15 or 20 meter long highlines. They were even rigged on polyester. Back in the days, maybe 10 years ago, that was normal. But leash falls were so hard on those. It always like tore your body apart. Nowadays, we learned that nylon is the only right material to go for if you rig a short line. You shouldn't have the line totally loose, but you also should not have it over tight. The nice tension is when the line bounces nicely up and down. And length will help absorb the leash falls. So I recommend not starting below a length of 30 meters, because otherwise, even though it's a bit more difficult on longer highlines, I admit that, if you're not used to walk longer lines, it's going to be more difficult on a 30 or a 50 meter line. So overall, I would actually even recommend to go for a 50 meter nylon line, because then you will be much less scared of leash falls. It will be technically more difficult, but if you're not scared, you're much more free to fight to your limit. Mistake number 9 is not to use protective equipment. Like, many highliners don't use any protective equipment, which is totally fine. But maybe if you're not used to climb, for example, then your fingers are not that strong and it will hurt to climb. So use gloves. If you're a beginner, you keep sitting for a long time and maybe your butt is not used to sitting on a line, so you can wear bicycle pants. And often also in the knee pitch, you can feel it. It's not a great climbing technique, but many beginners start like climbing with the line in the knee pitch. So it will hurt in the knee pitch. So yeah, put some protective equipment there. Overall, it's not needed, but if you go for a highline trip for the first or second time, better be equipped. It's really shit to stop because of pain reasons. Mistake number 10 is to try to stand up too close to the edge. Often beginners are scared from the void. The higher it is, the more they get scared. But actually the air, the void, is your friend. That's where you can fall without hitting the ground. The edge, the rocks, that's your enemy. That's where you don't want to stand up. That's where you must not stand up, because if you fall here, you will hit the rock and this will lead to injuries. And often I see beginners, like, they slide out a bit, and then when they want to stand up, they get into position and then they're moving a bit closer to the edge, just like out of reflex, because they just want to be a bit more close to the friendly environment. And this happens to the front, like if you face this direction, they often like slowly go to the front, but it also happens the other direction, that they want to stand up here, but then they think like, maybe a little closer to the edge is still a bit nicer. And what can happen here, for example, when you have the leash behind you and the leash maybe gets stuck a bit, your body will fall backwards. So make sure to definitely have enough distance. So here I definitely don't want to stand up, I want to slide out at least 5 meters. And if you belong to this person who tend to slide back towards the edge, make sure to have a friend informing you, watching you closely, that you don't do that. After a few times standing up, it will get better. You will have less fears. And one additional mistake, and that's maybe the most important of all, is not doing partner checks. These mistakes is mainly pros doing it. But I want to also let you know, as beginners, partner check are the one and most important thing in highlining when it comes to safety. Highlining overall is a pretty safe sport, but if you don't do the partner checks, there have been cases where people forgot to tie in, and it keeps happening. The more people get used to the height, the more it happens that partner checks are being forgotten. So please, don't be the one who forgets the partner check. Thank you. Okay, let's come to a little bonus mistake. It's not exactly for beginners, it's for slightly advanced slackliners. But a mistake that I often see is like people wanting to lock their knees together, so to block the line from shaking. But you should be free in your knees, you should be relaxed, because like this will give you the possibility to move much nicer. If you block the knees, this normally means that you want to control everything a bit better, but actually you're only locking your body from really being able to do all the necessary movements to balance. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, don't forget to give me a like here. And if you're interested in any slackline gear, visit slacktivity.com, because we have all the equipment you need to highline. You can also book highline courses on our page, especially for beginners who don't have highlining friends. I definitely recommend visiting a highline course first.